The Center for Disease Control states that over the past 20 years, obesity has drastically risen to an alarming rate in the United States. Over 1/3 of American adults and 17% of American children are considered obese. In order to fight the drastic rise of obesity, we must first discuss what obesity is and how it correlates with today's fast-paced American lifestyle. Hi, my name is Joey, and today we're going to discuss the definition of obesity along with some startling statistics and ways we can fight the continuing rise of the disease. So what is the difference between being obese and being overweight? Well, the Center for Disease Control, or CDC, uses the terms obese and overweight to describe weight ranges considered unhealthy when given a person's specific height. These higher weight ranges have also been determined to increase certain disease and health risks. The CDC uses the body mass index, or BMI, to determine the body fat percentage of adults. BMI is a number calculated by a person's height and weight. For example, for a gentleman that is 5 foot 9 inches tall and weighs 124 pounds or less, his BMI would be below 18.5. He would be considered underweight. For the same gentleman that rose to between 125 pounds and 168 pounds, his BMI then jumps to 18.5 to 24.9, and he would be considered at a healthy weight. Now, if this gentleman rose to between 169 and 202 pounds, his BMI would be between 25 and 29.9. At this point, he would be considered overweight. Now, the same gentleman weighing 5 foot 9 inches, if he jumps to 203 pounds or more, his BMI would be 30 or higher, and at this point, he would be considered obese. So as we can tell by that table, an adult who has a BMI between 25 and 29.9 is considered overweight. Now when he jumps to 30 or higher with his BMI, he's then considered obese. It's important to note that BMI only correlates with the amount of body fat a person has and does not directly measure it. So in the case of some people, such as weightlifting athletes, they could be considered overweight by the BMI even though they do not have excess body fat. There are other methods of measuring body fat percentage, such as skin fold thickness measurements with calipers, underwater weighing, and even dual energy x-ray. However, these methods are much more advanced and do require a lot more equipment. So what are some causes and consequences of being overweight and obese? Many people think that the only cause to being overweight or obese is simply eating too much. And although diet can lead to obesity, there's a much more complex factors involved. The most simple factor in becoming obese is the caloric imbalance equation, and this simply means that the body's not doing enough physical activity to burn off the amount of calories taken in. The environment a person lives in can also result in obesity. Factors in this category would include diet, workplace setting, and even technology. Americans as a whole are much more sedentary than we used to be. Growing jobs behind computers, television, and various forms of entertainment continue to keep us from being active. While genetics can also play a role in obesity, it does not simply mean that a person is born and they're obese. Genetics can only increase a person's susceptibility to becoming obese. Obesity can lead to major consequences both economically and health-wise. In 2008, for instance, obesity led to 10% of all medical costs in the United States. This totals to be about $147 billion. And if that isn't an alarming rate, then I don't know what is. Also, studies have shown that as weight reaches levels that are defined as overweight or obese, the risk of many conditions arise, such as coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and many, many more. There is no single solution for fighting the obesity epidemic. There has to be changes in many different facets of our lives to fight this constantly growing disease. Eating a healthy diet is probably the most important factor in fighting obesity. The major highlights in this diet should be limiting the amount of sugar, processed foods, and fat that you intake. It is tough to do this, especially with the constant growing fast food market in our country and energy drinks that sell to help fuel our hurried lifestyle. The second most important factor we can do is include more physical activity in our day-to-day lives. Limiting time behind desk and television and ensuring that you get some sort of physical activity every day is key. Today we've discussed what obesity is, some causes and consequences of being obese, and actions we can take to combat the disease. After discussing the epidemic, it's easy to conclude that obesity is a very dangerous disease and is constantly growing throughout the United States. Hopefully, after being presented with these startling statistics, you'll be more aware of the dangers of obesity and the importance of a healthy diet and exercise routine.